All right, so welcome to our last Microsoft Word lecture. This chapter is called Word Newsletters and Mail Merge. There's a couple of things you need to be aware of on here. Um, we are we're, there are specialized instructions for the mail merge component of this lecture, which you should download and have available to you before you sit down to work through this lecture. This is also a lecture that I highly recommend that you follow through to the end. There are specific information in here that will become very important to you when you work through your grader assignment, as well as the test, quite honestly, which is next week. So um, what you should do is go to Fanshawe Online, download the three files that are there. So there's one called Word04 Farmers, one called in Excel Word04 underscore farmer addresses, and you should also click and download the supplemental instructions to this week's lesson, and you should print that off and have that available to you as we work through the skills. So once you have those three files, you want to open Word04 Farmers, which is the file you can see on the screen right now. You're not going to open Word04 farmer addresses at this point in time. We will open it up later on so that we can look at it, but that is a source document for our mail merge. So before we start on the mail merge, we're going to work through some other skills. We're going to create columns. We're going to work around with columns a bit. You're going to apply some text effects. You're going to create your own cell style. We're going to do some borders, so border around the page and a border around a paragraph, and we're going to look at adding up a picture and moving that into the screen and what have you. So that should be fairly much a review from last week. Okay, so right now I have my screen set to one page. If I click on view, I could set it to 100% so it's a little easier to read, which we'll do in a bit, but for now I'm going to leave it on one page because I want to be able to show you as we're working through this. As a review, the first thing I want you to do is to add a footer. So to add a footer, again, you go to the Insert command, Insert tab, and you're going to go to the header, footer, page number section here, headers and sections. Click on Footer. Now what we want to do is we want to create our own footer. We're not going to use a pre-built footer. To do that, you're going to go down to the bottom and you're going to click on Edit Footer. When you click on Edit Footer, it brings up the new Header and Footer Tools tab with the Design tab, in which case here we can add components to our headers and footers. In our case right now, what we want to add here is the file name. File name is a quick part, so I can either click on Document Info, which will take me to that field, file name, or I can click on Quick Parts, go to Field, and find the field in my list there as file name. When I find the field, notice you also have an option within here to format that particular information. We're not going to, but you can, and you can actually add the path, which would say that the file is actually at c:\documents/ or wherever it happens to be. Alright, so I'm going to click OK. So that adds the field, the file name into my document. So just remember when you're working with my IT lab, if it tells you to add the file name, it means to add the field, not to type in the file name. So you must do it in the way that we just went through. I'm going to close my headers and footers so that I'm back into my document, and we're going to keep on going here. All right, the next step, we're going to change the theme. So it's the same as we did last week. We're going to click on Design. We're going to click on Themes. We're going to go down and we will select the WISP theme. And we're also going to change our fonts. So when you create a theme, by default the theme comes with a heading font and a body font. We're going to change our heading and body fonts, our heading and body fonts, to Century Gothic Palatino linotype. So you may not look like this. You notice I have custom fonts. That's because I've been playing around quite a bit. Then you'll have your office fonts, which is where you want to be, and you're going to search down here until you find Century Gothic Palatino linotype. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just expand the screen a bit because I want to take a look at the fonts themselves. So this is Century Gothic. So notice the way this, but these fonts here, the body fonts, you can see the little detail that's on the bottom of the Y there and so on. That's called a serif. So with a serif, they add kind of flourishes to your text to make it look like that. So you'll see when you're talking about font types, there'll be some that'll be called serif and some will be called sans serif. In other words, without serif. So just a little bit of information to help you out as you're working through this. I'm going to leave it expanded for a bit now because I worked through this. I want to select all of the text in my document except for, so starting at association membership, I'm going to select all the way to the bottom. All right, I should make it a little bit smaller so we can, let's just go here and change it to 100%. All right, so with all that selected, what I want to do is I'm going to change this to columns. So columns are what you would see in a newspaper or in a magazine or what have you. In our case, we're going to go to the Layout tab, we're going to go to Columns, and we're going to select 2. So I don't want a column to be part of the heading, I just want to have it for the text that's below. Okay, so now I have two columns, and what happens is the text works its way down through the bottom. When it hits the bottom of the page, it'll wrap up and start over again at the top of the next page. There's also a section break that is created here, and we talked about section breaks briefly last week. A section break allows you to break a Word document into different components so that you can apply different formatting to each section within our document. When you create a column break, it automatically creates, or when you create columns, it automatically creates the section break. So with your text still selected, we're going to change the font. So I'm going to click on Home, and I'm going to change the font to Comic Sans Serif, just to show you the difference. So if you look at your text now, you can see the little the flourish that they've got on the bottom of the Y and so on. I'm going to go down, find Comic Sans Serif, and then you can see on the Y that you no longer have that serif font on there. I'm going to make sure that my text is still selected, and I'm going to change the alignment to justify. So remember, we have 4 different levels of alignment within Word. You have left justified, which is what this currently is, so you can see that your left margin is straight, so all your text starts at the left margin. Center would center the text within the columns. Right justify would make your, well, let me show you. So this is what it would look like centered. So right now all my text is centered. This is right justify, so you can see that my right margin is now square and my left margin is not. And finally we're going to go to justify, and what justify does is it makes sure that your left and your right margin are square. Notice what it does. It adds a little bit of space between characters, and I think we talked about this in PowerPoint. But you can look here on the first line where it says currently membership in the farmers market, blah blah blah. You can see that there's added space in between those words so that my right margin and my left margin are justified. Normally, text in columns is justified. Regular letter text is not. It's left justified. In other words, and that is sometimes called a ragged right margin. In other words, the right margin simply flows by the number of characters, so it's not justified. In this case, we have both our left and our right justified. Okay, so that's skill number 1, modify themes and create columns. Skill number 2, modify margins and columns. I want you to go to Layout, go to Columns, and go down to the bottom where it says More Columns. And in here you can see what you have. So you have the ability to change. Right now we're set to 2, so number of columns is 2. Notice here it says the width spacing is 0.5, so that's a ½ inch space between each column. So one of the ways that I can make sure that my columns, that I have everything fitting on the page, is I can narrow that spacing between columns, which would give me a little bit more space. So I'm going to change that to 3, And you can see when it does, it changes the width of the columns from 3 to 3.1 because we've reduced 2 spaces in between. And I will click OK, and you can see the effect on my document. Okay, so that's fine. I want to go to the left of canopies and umbrellas. So what I want to do, right, the way if I look at my document right now, you can see that I have, the left column is full and the right column is only going partway down the screen. So there's an opportunity for me here to move some text over to the second column to kind of broaden out my document. To do that, I'm going to position my cursor beside canopies and umbrellas. I'm going to go to Layout, and there's an option here called Breaks, and I'm going to insert a column break. So that will automatically move the second column, that column text over to the next column. Okay. So that was skill number 2. Skill number 3 is apply text effects. So again, I'm going to make it bigger. And we're going to play with the title a little bit here. So I'm going to select my title. I'm going to change the font to Century Gothic. Now we had changed it earlier, so we're just kind of changing it back. So we're just playing with things here. So I'm going to change this to Century Gothic, which is my heading font. I'm going to change the size to 30. So I can't use the drop down because there is no 30. I have to type it in. I'm going to center it. And then I'm going to apply text effects. Text effects are this little kind of fuzzy blue here, blue letter A that you can see. So along the top I have some pre-built text effects, and below that I have all the different text effects. And we've seen this before in PowerPoint. We talked before about containers, so you can apply effects to the container and you can apply independently effects to the text inside. In Word, we're simply going to apply text to the words. If we created a text box, we would have a container that we could apply them to as well, but in this case we're just going to use the text. Now the instructions in the textbook says fill dark red accent 1, but that doesn't exist, so I'm simply going to pick the second one here, fill blue accent color 1 shadow. And I want to change my spacing because you can see that I have all of the space underneath below the word aspirin. So if I double click, you can see my paragraph spacing below here. So I'm going to click and I'm going to change my paragraph spacing to 0, and I'm going to change my line spacing to single, and I'll click OK. And now I'm going to select all my headings, and I want to apply some text effects to that heading, so I'm going to go down here to shadow, and I'm going to select, and you can see as I hover over top of each one how it affects. So we're going to select this last one, offset top left. Okay, so that was skill number 3. Now in skill number 4, I'm just going to briefly bring up the navigation pane. So remember when we worked through the navigation pane in the first week, headings allow you to move directly to any text within the document that's identified as a heading, in this case a heading 2 cell style. If I click on the Home tab, you can see that each one of these is a heading 2 cell style. Okay. So what I'm going to want to do here is I'm going to actually, so if I highlight my heading 2 cell style, if I right click on that, and we did this in the very first week, we did it slightly differently. What we did was we made changes to the text, and then we went and used the update heading 2 to the match selection. So if you remember in the first week when we had the heading of the document, which was a heading 1 cell style, was centered, but the bibliography heading was a heading 1 cell style but not centered. We went to the top one, we selected that, and we said update heading 1 at that point to match the selection, which then applied the center alignment to my bibliography heading. In here, if I wanted to, I could modify. We're not going to, I'm just going to show you. I could modify heading 2. So there's all the formats that are currently applied to it, so font, default, and so on. I could click on format, change something, and if I did, then all my heading 2 cell styles within this document would change to match my modified heading cell style. Now in this case we're not going to do that. We're actually going to create our own cell style. So one of the nice things I like about Microsoft Office is that they created a lot of pre-built options, but they still gave you the option to change and create your own. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our own cell style. To do that, I want you to select Association Membership, and we're going to apply a number of different formats to that heading, and then we're going to create a cell style based on those formats. So the first thing we're going to do is change the font to Century Gothic. We're going to change the size to 16. We're going to change the font color to green accent 6, darker 50%. We're going to apply the small caps font. So remember, you can't get to it from the ribbon. You have to bring up the dialog box and turn on small caps. We're going to center align. We're going to change our line spacing before to 0 and our line spacing after to 6, and we're going to apply single line spacing. So we made a number of different adjustments to this particular piece of text. Now I could right click on Update Heading to Cell Style, and it would apply that cell style to all of these other ones, but in this case we're not going to. We're actually going to click and we're going to say create a style. So we'll call it Aspen Style, and I'll click OK. So now you can see in my styles box I have a new cell style here called Aspen Style, the first one in the list. So I can apply that to all of my different headings simply by selecting them and applying the heading or the Aspen Style cell style to it. Okay, so that's creating your own cell style. Now understand that when you create a cell style, that cell style is only in effect for the document that you're currently in. However, if you do want a cell style to be common across all your documents, you could create a template, apply that cell style, and then use the template to build your new documents. But again, if you ever get to that level of sophistication, you'll figure it out. Okay, so that's skill number 4. Skill number 5 is to apply borders. So we're going to apply a border around the outside of the whole page, and then we're also going to apply a border to one paragraph within the page. Okay, so to do that, we're going to click on the Design tab. On the far right of the Design tab, you can see Page Borders. So I'm going to click on Page Borders. This brings up the Borders and Shading dialog box. It's made up of 3 tabs. So there's the Borders tab, the Page Borders tab, and Shading. So the Page Borders tab is what it says. It applies a border to the whole page. The Shading tab changes colors inside the border. And the Borders tab allows you to apply borders to something smaller than the whole page. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to apply a page border. We're going to make it a box border around the whole page. We'll select, what do they want us to do here? The box, we'll just change the line color. So we're going to change, so I could change the line style here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to change the line color to green accent 6. I'm going to change the weight of that line to 1.5. Okay. And I'm going to click OK. So there you can see I now have that green border around my document. Now we're going to do something different. We're going to select this paragraph. And again, remember paragraph formats, you just have to select in the paragraph. You do not have to highlight the whole text. All right, we're going to go back to Page Borders, but now we're going to go to Shading. And we're going to apply a shading color of green accent 6, lighter 60%. Then we're going to select the Borders tab. We're going to put a box border. Under line style, we're going to pick the solid line. You can pick any one you want, but just keep in line with the box, with the textbook. color. We're going to do dark green, and I'll select OK. And you can see what it has done is that it's put that green shading inside the paragraph, and it's put the box around the outside. Then I'm going to select the text in the box. Now remember, when you're doing font changes, you have to select the text. So I have to select all of my text. I'm going to bold and center that text, and I'm going to change the font color to, say, this one here. Okay, so that's skill number 5. Skill number 6, we're going to insert a picture. So what I want is a picture. So we've done this before. We did this before with the online pictures. So I'm going to click on Insert, Online Picture. And again, if you have a Mac, you don't have this option. You're going to have to do a search in Safari or whatever browser you're using, copy and paste the picture. I'm going to search for farmer market clip art. And again, remember we talked about Creative Commons and what have you. I'm going to select this one here. When you create that, I've tried this with a number of different images. Sometimes when you select an image, it doesn't adjust nicely, and you might have to delete the image and pick a different one. But in this particular case, when I click on this image, it's going to make a really small image, but we'll fix that. So I'm going to click on Insert. Oh, and it's in the wrong spot, but that's fine. We can fix that too. I'm sorry, you should have clicked up here in front of that. But anyway, that's fine. So when I'm in that picture, it brings up my Pictures Tools menu, my Format box. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to change the height to 2 inches, which will make the picture much more useful to me. I'm going to go into Color. I'm going to change the color to this Green Accent 6. And I could do any of the other options that I wanted to as well. I could put borders around it, picture effects, and so on. But that's fine. I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm going to go to Wrap Text, Square. Remember what Wrap Text allows me now to move that picture. I'm going to move it around so that it's in the center of the document, and I'll show an alignment guide at some point here. Okay, let's just a second here. Remember, if you don't see your alignment guide, you have to make sure that the align is turned on. Right, so that's in the align options, use alignment guides. All right, then so now I know that that's in the center of the document and it's in line with the association membership heading. And remember what the anchor stands for. The anchor means that that picture is anchored to that particular paragraph. Okay. Okay. All right, so for the rest of this, we're now going to go into mail merge. So what mail merge allows us to do is to create individualized messages or letters to a number of different people. So now what you need to do is open up that other document. I'm going to show it to you here. So you want to have this document open so that you can work through it as we work through the mail merge itself. The textbook does not use the mail merge wizard. The textbook uses the mail merge options individually, which is the way you have to do it if you're running with a Mac. But there are special instructions in Fanshawe Online on how to do the mail merge on a Mac. So I highly recommend, if you have a Mac, you need to read the Fanshawe Online section on mail merge, and there are detailed instructions there, both in the lecture component and in completing the grader assignment, because there's a fair amount of difference between a Mac and a PC when it comes to mail merge. But I want you to take a look at this graphic at the very first here. All right, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Whoops. Okay. So basically what this is telling you is that when you create mail merge, the mail merge is actually made up of 3 individual components. There's the main document, which is what you are currently working on right now. So that's the letter that we just created all of the columns with and added the picture to and so on. Then there is something called the source document. The source document contains one line of information for each person that you want to receive the letter. So if you were doing a mailing out to everybody in the London plant of 3M, your source document could be a Excel spreadsheet that contains one row for each person in the plant. It could be it could be a Access database. It could be your Outlook contact list. So the address book from Outlook, which has a phone number and what have you, and information on everybody in the company. But the bottom line here is that the source document has one record, one line for each individual who's going to receive the letter. So what mail merge does is it takes each source line, so let's say the source line contains first name, last name, department, and what have you, and then it will take one line and it allows you to take individual fields from that source document and insert them into your main document. All right? So what will happen then, and you can see in the center box, the mail merge process, step 6, complete the mail merge, takes the first row of the source document. All right, so the source document is your Excel spreadsheet in our case, and inserts that information into the main document merge fields and creates a new document, and it's the new document where you will have one page per person in the source. So in our case, in our lecture, there are 24 people in our Excel spreadsheet. So you have your main document, which is the one you've already created. You have an Excel spreadsheet that has 24 rows of information in it. So when it's all done, you are going to end up with a brand new document with 24 individual pages in it, one page for each person in the source document. Now, you really need to understand that the way that My IT Lab works, you cannot submit your main document to My IT Lab to be marked. It will simply mark everything wrong. Even the components that you got correct, it'll mark them wrong simply because the way My IT Lab works, it takes a look at your starting document and your end document, and it does a line-by-line comparison. Once you create a mail merge, it throws all sorts of hidden code into your main document to manage the mail merge, which knocks off the one-to-one alignment for My IT Lab. So you must in My IT Lab submit the end result of the mail merge, which is the brand new document with 24 pages in it. Okay, now I know this isn't going to make a whole lot of sense to you, but we'll work our way through it. But it's crucial that you understand how this works to enable you to complete your grader assignment, and quite honestly, to enable you to complete the test next week and get full marks. Okay. So the rest of the mail merge paper that you have has all of the instructions that we're going to work through in doing the mail merge. Okay, so you should have that open and available to you, and I'm going to continue on doing the mail merge at this point in time. So I'm going to return back to my main document. I'm going to turn off the navigation pane so we have more space on the screen. And what we are going to do now is we're going to create our mail merge. Okay, so what we want to do here is I'm going to click at the end of Aspen Falls at the heading, and I'm going to add a new blank line into my document. And in this place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the address of the person who's receiving this and some personalized information to that individual, and I'm going to have that on each and every letter that we work through. Okay, so remember, right now we're working on the main document. Okay, so let's begin. So I've added a blank line, but of course it assumes all the formats from the line above. I don't want it to do that, so I'm going to change a number of things. So I'm going to click on the Home tab. I'm going to change the font to my body font. I'm going to change my size to 11. I'm going to change my color to automatic. And I'm going to left justify. Now we're going to start mail merge. So again, if you're running with a Mac, please read through the information in Fanshawe Online. but if you're running with a PC, let's get started. So we're going to click on Mailings, and we're going to click on Start Mail Merge. So these are the 6 individual steps that take you through Mail Merge. We're going to go straight down here to the step-by-step Mail Merge wizard. So this brings up this Mail Merge pane on the far right, which is going to say there are 6 steps. So the first step is to select your main document. So we're working on a letter, so we're going to modify information in this main document. So once it says letter, I'm going to click Next. Okay. Now the next piece here is it says how do you want to, what is going to be your source document? Oh, sorry. No, we want to do letter. Now we're doing our use the current document. So we're going to click Next. All right, so now we're into the source file. So we're going to use an existing list, but just so you can see, so here you can say select from Outlook contacts, so it would go to your address book in Outlook. In our case, you also have the option here of saying type a list. I'm just going to click on that and show you. So here I could actually type a list of all of the people that I want to have letters for. Notice the titles. So it says title and first name, last name, current, so on and so forth. So there's a number of pre-built ones. I could add my own if I wanted to say something like department or plant or something along that line. We're not going to do that. We're going to actually use an existing list. All right, but it's just to show you what's capable. So we're going to browse. And we're going to find, you're going to find that original file that you downloaded at the start called Farmers Addresses. So you want the file WRD04 farmersaddresses.xlsx, which is an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to click Open. Now in this case it asks you which worksheet you want. There's only one worksheet in that spreadsheet, so I'm going to click OK. And it provides me with a list. Now, one of the biggest problems that people have with Mail Merge is that if your source document is not set up correctly, then the Mail Merge becomes very, very, very difficult. The important thing with your source document is that you must have headers across the top of the source document that identifies the fields below, because the Mail Merge is going to look at those headings to pull the values that it needs. You should try to match the headings to the ones that Word is looking for. And again, if we went back to that type of list, it said, you know, first name, last name, and what have you. There is a way within Mail Merge where if they don't match exactly, you can map them to each other. But so you can see here that I have data source. So I've got last name, first name, company, address 1, city, state, zip, phone. So those are names that Mail Merge is expecting to see. I'm going to run down through the list and see if I have any blank rows, which I do. So I'm going to turn that row off because I don't need to use that. Now below here you have options for sort, filter, find duplicates, find a particular and validate addresses. So filter, so I could say filter by company. So as an example, if you had, let's say you were providing a newsletter to your current plant, but the data that you have available to you has every plant in the system in it. You could go in here, pull that file in, and then filter and say only show me the London plant. We're not going to filter this data, so I'm going to click cancel. Sort allows you to sort the data so that when it prints out the letters, they'll be sorted by a particular. So we're going to sort by company in ascending order, so A to Z. So I'm going to click OK. So now my blank one comes to the top, but now it's Ariel Waters. So Amber Waves is first. So, and you can look in the company list here, which is now sorted alphabetically. We don't need to worry about find duplicates or the others, so I'm going to click OK. Okay, so at this point in time we have selected our source. So we have our main document, which is your original letter, and we have our source, which has one line for every person who's going to get a copy of this letter. Okay, so we're going to click Next, write your letter. So now we're going to actually insert the Mail Merge fields into my main document. All right, So the first thing I want here is at the top of the letter, I want their address. So in here, I have an option here called an address block. I'm going to click on that, and it'll show me. And by the way, again, on a Mac, this doesn't exist. You have to create it manually, and there are instructions in Fanshawe Online on how to do that. But you can see what it has here is it has a list of different types of addresses. So I'm going to stick with the default. Make sure it has insert recipient's name in the format, and it has insert company name, insert postal address, and format address according to the destination country are all ticked off. I can use the arrows here to take a look and see what they're going to look like when they go into my document. All right, mine's going to start at number 2 because number 1 was a blank row, and this is where you could, if you had field names that didn't match up with what the mail merge was looking for, I could click here and say, for the required name for the address book is first name, mine is called something else. Okay, so the required names are what mail merge is looking for, and you would then simply say, all right, for the first name, I've got it stored in field number or field name something else. Okay, so that's what this is for. And once I'm fine, I'm going to click OK. What I will see in my document is a merge field, and this merge field is called an address block. You can see the chevron brackets around the outside of it. That identifies this as a merge field. So I'm going to click enter. I'm going to type dear space, and now I want their first name. So I'm going to click over here and then click more items, and I'm going to say I want the first name. Click insert and close. So I get another merge field with chevron brackets in the name. I'm going to hit a space, because if you don't hit a space, you won't get one in your document. And then I'm going to type in here, where are we here? All right, I'm way down. Okay. Okay, here we go. So I'm down into step 7 on this document. Step 4, point number 7 in the merge print document. On the wizard, click more items, and say dear, okay. And then we're going to type our records. Show your phone number. Is, and now I'm going to add the phone number to my merge print. So I'm going to click back on more items. There's phone. I'm going to click on insert and close. Please advise if this is correct. Thanks. Okay, so what we have now done is we have told the merge print to put in an address block and then type dear, and then go out to the source document, find the first name, stick it in here, blah 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 blah, go out to the address or the source file, find the phone number, pop it in there, and we're done. Okay, so we're done now. So I want to preview my letter. I want to see what it looks like. So now you can see what it looks like. There's my address block, Ariel Waters, Amber Waves Garden, blah blah blah. Dear Ariel, our records show your phone number is 805-555-4712. Please advise if this is correct. Thanks. I can take a look at individual letters, so I can go over here and say there's the next one that it's going to show up, and so on. I could exclude, so if there was one person I didn't want to get the letter, I could pull that person out. I could find that person in the list here and exclude them. I can edit the recipient list at this point, so I could go in and change that. But now we're done, so I'm going to complete the merge. All right, this is the critical part of the whole thing. At this point in time, you would have two choices if you were doing this in real life. You could simply send the letters to the printer, in which case you'd be done. But you cannot do that in this exercise for My IT Lab. You must click on this next option down there that says Edit Individual Letters. And it'll say Merge New Document. I want all, so I'm going to click OK. And now you'll see that what I have is I have a whole new document. It's called Letters 3 in my case. Yours will probably say Letters 1. And in that document, I have, let's see here. Oh, I'm going to have to scroll this down a bit. What you can see is that it says page 1 of 24. That means that this brand new document called Letters 3 has 24 pages in it. One page for each person in my merge. This is the document that I have to submit to My IT Lab. So at this point in time, when you were done with your document, when you were completed at this point in time in your grader assignment, you've got your X number of letters for each individual. I think you're only going to have 3, but it doesn't matter. Then you are going to save this file, call it whatever you want, and then make sure that this is the file that you submit to My IT Lab. Do not submit your original file, the one you downloaded from My IT Lab. You're going to submit this brand new file to My IT Lab to be marked. That is the only way this will work. Okay. All right, so I would then go in and just save it. And then I could go into My IT Lab. So it's going to say, where do I want to save it to? I'll save it to downloads. I'll call it whatever I want to call it, doesn't matter. And then now this file, which has got 24 pages in it, is the file that I'm going to submit to My IT Lab to be marked. Okay. The next piece here, we're just going to show you quickly how to create labels using Mail Merge. To do that, I'm going to create a brand new document. So I'm going to go File, New, blank document. All right, I'm going to go to Mailings, Start Mail Merge, go to Step-by-Step Mail Merge Wizard. I'm going to go over here, pick Labels, and say Start New Document. How did this get out of line? Okay. So I'm going to change the document layout. So I'm going to take my existing one document here. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to select my label options. So when you're creating labels, you're going to have a document. You're going to have the labels are going to be you're going to buy them at the store or whatever. They're going to be named, so there'll be different types. So you can see in this case these are Avery US letters, and they will all have a number attached to them. So you would just find the correct number, because you need to have that so that your labels are properly sized. So we're going to use 5160 address labels. If I wanted to see what it looked like, I can click on Details, and there you can see all of the components that you need. But we're just going to click OK. And you will see on the screen a grid. If you don't see that grid, you're going to have to turn on the grid lines. They've changed this. So the instructions that you have say that you have to turn these on, but that doesn't apply for Office 365. If you are running with Office 2013, you probably have to go to Layout and turn the grid lines on. But for our purposes, the grid lines are already here. I'm going to make this bigger so that you can see what we're doing from this point on. Okay. All right. So there's my label options. I'm going to say select my recipients. This is exactly what we did before. I'm going to use an existing list. I'm going to browse. I'm going to go out and I'm going to find my my Excel spreadsheet again. All right, so this is exactly what we did before. So I'll go down here, get rid of that blank line. I'll sort it based on company. I'll click OK. All right, and now we're going to arrange your labels. Click OK. So again, I want an address block That's all I'm going to want. You only have to put the formatting in the very first one. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to say update all labels. Alright, so now there's an address block in every label. Click Next. You can see that it's a little bit coming off the screen, so we're going to have to actually fix that. So I'm going to select my whole document. I'm going to go into Home tab. And again, you would have to kind of play with it if you were doing it in real life, but in our case I know that if I set this to 0 and click OK, that my labels will be fine. So now I can see all my labels. So again, you can preview and what have you. Then I'm going to complete the merge, and I could do the same thing. If I knew my labels were correct, I could send them straight to the printer. If I wasn't sure, I can say edit individual letters, which will create a brand new document, same as the last time. Now this document is going to be called table label. There it is. There, labels 4. And then I could send that to the printer and save it and do whatever I wanted to and make changes and so on. Okay. All right. So that is it. Hopefully that made some sort of sense to you. But if you have any questions at all, please talk to your instructor. It's very important. Mail merge is the one component on Word that the employer council specifically stated that they needed graduating students to have. So that's why this is here. All right. Thanks again. Bye now.